Hi, this is Dan Smith of DPS Legal Counsel, and today I want to talk to you about taxes, and specifically if you're a small business owner, an entrepreneur who is running your own small business, mid-sized business. One of the biggest challenges you might face during the lifetime of your business operations would be an IRS audit or examination. And I want to just give you a few basic tips and items to kind of file away in your mind to help you in the event that you find yourself facing an IRS audit. First, if you do have an audit open against you or your business, know that you have the right to have representation in that audit. And if you do hire someone to represent you on the audit, that person is going to be the interface between the Internal Revenue Service and your business and you, so that it kind of takes you out of the middle of dealing with that. That's a good thing. Second, in the event that you're undergoing an audit and the revenue agent sort of becomes hard to find, and things you can't get into contact with the revenue agent, and they sort of drop off the map. That's a bad sign, and sometimes what that means is that the IRS may be looking at a criminal, converting a civil examination into a criminal examination. This one of the signs of that occurring is that the revenue agent sort of disappears, and you can't contact them, you can't find them, nothing's happening. And the reason for that is that once a case has been referred for possible criminal investigation, the IRS civil side of things suspends the examination at that point. And so, the revenue agent doesn't tell you that that's happened. And so when you can't find the agent, you can't contact them, nothing seems to be happening, that may be a sign that your case has been moved from civil to possible criminal investigation. If you do find that you are under investigation for a criminal violation for a tax crime, and you are someone comes to you and identifies himself or herself as a special revenue agent, they'll have a badge. They'll be, they'll be the real deal. If they are a special agent of the Internal Revenue Service, that means they are a criminal investigator. You should not speak to them. You should decline to speak to them until you have engaged an attorney and have that attorney contact them and deal with them directly. You don't want to answer questions and potentially say the wrong thing, so you don't want to allow them into your place of business or your home unless they have a warrant. Just contact an attorney and have the attorney handle that at that point. Also, if you have a civil audit going on and you start getting questions about sources of income or bank statements, and maybe a lot of interest in the revenue agent in maybe the differences between reported income and what's on your bank deposits, it could be that there's some suspicion that you have unreported or underreported income. If that's the case, that could lead to possibly a criminal investigation, or even just a civil fraud investigation. Civil fraud is serious too, although it's not criminal. And in that regard, I would say that generally, and I'm speaking generally, the IRS on a civil investigation has 3 years essentially. There's some exceptions to the rule, but generally 3 years to assess taxes on an audit from the time that you file your return. If you have a significant understatement on your tax return, 25% or more, then they have 6 years generally. But if there is fraud and you filed a fraudulent return, and the IRS has to prove that by clear and convincing evidence. But if you have a fraudulent return, there's no statute of limitations. They can impose the fraud penalty forever. There's not any statute of limitations. The fraud penalty is 75% of the tax owed. So it's a significant civil penalty. Of course, the criminal statute, there are statutes of limitation on the government bringing criminal charges. Typically in tax cases it's 6 years, but those are some important points to keep in mind. But the key point is, if you are under any kind of IRS audit, get immediate help from you're either a CPA or an attorney or an enrolled agent. Those are the parties that can represent you on an audit. My preference would always be that you contact an attorney to represent you with respect to an audit. If you have certain, sometimes it doesn't work in the taxpayer's interest to have the CPA who prepared the returns also handle the audit. And in fact, if there's a potential, at least, for there to be a criminal element to the case, the attorney-client privilege is much broader than any kind of privilege that would apply with a taxpayer and a CPA. Anyway, those are some of the key points I would want to kind of throw out there. A tax audit often is just pro forma, and it's not hard to get through, and that's most of them. But on occasion, you have to be very cautious and work through them very carefully. You want to be cooperative, but you want to be accurate and precise and honest in your dealings with the IRS. But sometimes you need some professional guidance in how you handle an examination, particularly if there's some sensitive issues involved. And again, because of the fact that there are some statute of limitations that apply in tax world, if a possible fraud case, civil fraud case, can be shown by your representative to really not be fraud, then that would change the statute of limitations from forever to either 3 or 6 years, depending on the situation with your tax return. So all those things are just kind of out there to help you keep in mind to watch for tax problems. Make sure you file your returns on time, correctly, keep good records. But if you get under audit, it's not a bad idea to contact someone sooner rather than later and have that person be your interface with the IRS. All right, I hope that helps, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks.